Are you ready to be influenced? Because I'm ready to influence you. Just don't mind the bag of sitting right behind me. It's been a while. There's a lot to catch up on because I've been busy with, I can't even. The Fallout and broader gaming community has been busy with some controversies lately, and I've got a story to tell you today, so make sure not to drink too much soda before the movie and stick with me for this. Tim Cain, the man needs no introduction, but here's one anyway for modern Fallout fans. He created Fallout, and with it introduced the concept of immense levels of player freedom and choice to a genre that lacked many cases of that. He left during the development of Fallout 2 over creative disagreements and has been doing his own thing since. All fine there. But yeah, nowadays he still does his own thing, but is occasionally involved with Fallout, such as by being invited to watch premieres of the Fallout show. Famously, or infamously, depending on your point of view, he defended the first 2 episodes of Fallout Season 1, saying he was so mesmerized by seeing his creation on the big screen that he had to be told what happened. And while not the topic of the video, I really just want to note the fact that Tim Cain, having to be told what happened in the story, is unironically used as a defense for the story in Fallout Season 1. Skull emoji. Anyway, he later got himself in hot water by pointing out the obvious, that Fallout is not about capitalism, and this got him to step away from the Fallout subreddit, not banned. The idea that he was banned is actually a misunderstanding of what happened. No, he wasn't banned, the guy who shared his original views was. And in some cases, slandered. But to be completely honest, that is moderate behavior considering the average thing a Bethesda Fallout fan does, such as doxing you. But despite the fact that the modern Fallout fandom basically rejected him, he's still cited as an authority figure, especially in contexts involving defenses of modern Fallout, especially the Fallout show. Overwhelming cases of cognitive dissonance aside, the Fallout community kept chugging along, and then recently, Tim Cain made a video where he talked about influencers basically telling other people what to think.
And now we're in the 2020s, and many gamers don't even look to influencers for reviews. They look to influencers to be told how to think about the games. So people don't form opinions from the online video. They're handed an opinion from the online channel they're watching. What this means is I've seen reviews go from, this game has less combat and more puzzles and dialogues for you to interact with than this other game, to, this game is stupid and slow-paced and made for casuals, I think you should skip it. That's a huge difference in how games are presented. But more people are going for that latter. They're like, I don't have time, there's too many games. Just tell me whether I should buy it. Tell me if it's for me. So they find someone they just like, and then that person's opinion becomes their opinion.
Now, let's look at this objectively and ignore the irony of someone telling you about influencers while also influencing you in this video. But yeah, let's look at this objectively. Tim Cain, due to being a public figure and trying not to start fires, so to speak, had to speak vaguely without concrete examples. This leads him, in my opinion, to be both correct and incorrect. On the one hand, he is incorrect because what a lot of quote-unquote influencers do is simply verbalize what a lot of people feel and think already. It's not necessarily that YouTubers are just making others think different things, and this is the angle that a lot of, subject of today's video used as a defense. I'll get to that in a moment. But a lot of people who felt called out resorted to saying that this is not how being an influencer is and that Tim Cain does not understand that. And it's admittedly not a bad point. Not everyone can exactly verbalize a lot of the problems that they have with something. Let's say a video game, for example. Let's say there's a video game that a lot of people don't like. They may not enjoy it, they may be able to point to 1 or 2 problems with it, but they won't be able to make the argument in its totality. So they will naturally look for people who do not like the video game and can make a more coherent argument. Or they just want to see people who agree. Or in other cases, they may be uncertain about a video game and will look for someone that they trust to explain why it is or is not a good or bad choice. Why do you think that video essays on video games are so popular nowadays? It's not just because people want to be informed, it's also because people want to understand exactly what is wrong or right about a video game in detail. So yeah, on the one hand, Tim Cain is incorrect. On the other hand, I really fucking wonder what kind of influencer he could possibly be referring to when he says that people no longer think and that influencers just tell others what to think nowadays. I double fucking wonder what kind of person he could possibly be referring to when he is intrinsically tied to the Fallout community and recent Fallout controversies, at least some of them, especially when you consider the trends that a lot of this fandom has.
Because Tim said that, but if you go and read the...
Wait, no way.
of Tim Cain and the other creators of Fallout these naysayers ended up being. These people want to say that Fallout was never about capitalism because Tim said that, but if you go and read the actual interview, he never said that it wasn't part of it. Yet these
Can you read? Gavin is saying that Fallout is a critique of capitalism, and Gavin is saying that Tim Cain thinks Fallout is partially a critique of capitalism, and his evidence is Tim Cain saying the exact opposite, but being okay with people reading it that way. What the fuck? It's such a mystery, man. It's such a mystery, don't you think? It really is a mystery of what kind of influencer that Tim Cain could possibly be referring to, huh? Now, I actually have a different read of this whole topic than most people had, not just on game design, but on gaming mentality as a whole. You'll see what I mean. Now, pay attention. Despite the fact that I do not think he had any particular YouTuber in mind, we know what kind of influencer he's referring to in this video, don't we? On this channel, we have an abundance of examples, do we not? Because we face him all the time in Ava live streams, which you should check out, right? You should check that out, click the subscribe button, join the Discord, fucking donate your entire savings or something. It's the kind of influencer that creates a soft cult around themselves, if you will. The kind of influencer that grabs the attention of those who want validation and, by consequence, effectively forces people to think like they do rather than giving folks an idea of what their opinion is. All the while trying to obfuscate what they're doing by trying to seem like the reasonable person in the middle.
Starfield is the first Bethesda game to include New Game Plus, and to keep with the theme of not giving spoilers, this is all I will say about it. It's a welcome feature and fits naturally into Starfield. Is Starfield worth your time? Yes. If you have never played a Bethesda game before, I think Starfield is an excellent place to start. And for returning fans of Bethesda's games, you are going to feel right at home. In the short time I have spent with Starfield, it has quickly become one of my top 5 favorite games. It offers so many things to do that I find myself just getting lost in the world for hours at a time, doing jobs, talking to the people that live in the universe, and discovering far-off lands. Starfield is something special. Bethesda's magnum opus, a game that Todd Howard has been wanting to make for the majority of his life, the game he dreamt of making as a starry-eyed college student just breaking into the gaming industry, and it was worth the wait. Thank you, Bethesda, for giving me the opportunity to explore this world early and share my thoughts, and for those of you still watching the video, thank you for tuning in. It means the world to me that you would even care to listen to me gush about what I am sure is going to be your next favorite game.
It's the kind of people that will openly lie and psyop their audiences into not thinking for themselves. The kinds of influencers that tell you false shit, but they'll say it so confidently and matter-of-factly that it suddenly becomes true. And people acting like this, people being influencers like this, has consequences, and we've seen those consequences recently, haven't we? Remember Starfield? Me neither. Starfield was a game that most people could, if unaffected by hype slop, easily realize that it was going to be ass. Or mid, I guess. Bethesda has a long track record of dumbing games down, false advertising, overhyping, and they haven't made a game most people can agree was good in over a decade. They also have a history of money-hungry behavior, most evident in their constant reselling of Skyrim and selling other people's unfinished work disguised as DLC. The game was not a work of passion, it was built around what influencers would like. A space RPG that was built around ticking all of the correct boxes rather than having the depth it needed to have. And you know, the passion. And the shilling influencers just looked at that and said, oh yeah, that tickles my fancy, so I'm gonna tell people to be hyped for this, even though they really fucking shouldn't. And this is the aspect of Tim Cain's video that a lot of people are not talking about. Influencers are trusted more than games journalism, not that that's a fucking achievement. So games are built with YouTube clips and the preferences of influencers in mind, rather than any conviction in what the game developer is making, and then influencers eat it up, and the people who trust said influencers will just go along with the flow and then start believing in nonsense that they really shouldn't, and not thinking for themselves. Effectively handing an easy victory and payout to bad companies, bad faith companies on a silver platter. If you need a concrete example of that, consider the reactions to my video on Starfield before the game came out, in which all evidence pointed to Starfield being overhyped and disappointing, but people just defended it wholeheartedly. And even though Starfield is a perfect case study of why you shouldn't trust influencers and why influencers have a negative effect on gaming. It just kept fucking going because, much to my dismay, we started seeing shit like this, with people forgetting everything wrong that Bethesda has done and returning to tricking others into believing that Starfield is a good game and that we should be hyped for what's coming next. And you know, with so many people saying it's a good game, I guess it must be a good game, right? Because all the influencer people are influencing me into believing it's a good game, so it must be a good game and everything must be hunky fucking dory right now. And it's a good game, and oh look, it's coming out on PS5. I'm gonna pre-order Starfield on PS5 because I trust what I'm told. What could possibly go wrong? Ah, the consequences of not thinking for yourself. How absolutely baffling. You know, on the one hand, I get people who may have expected legitimate improvements. Starfield was hyped and Bethesda did say they didn't want to give up on it. As such, I think it is reasonable to think that they would do everything in their power to fix the core issues with the game and launch it successfully. On the other hand, you idiots pre-ordered a re-release of Bethesda's most overhyped, disappointing, boring, mocked, and arguably controversial game in their entire history. All of this made worse by the fact that people have been alerting to Bethesda's track record of dumbing down, lying, false advertising, and worsening quality for 2 fucking decades. And the base release of Starfield is still fucking plagued with problems. What in the actual ass-sniffing, cope-infused, delusion-inhaling fuck were you pre-order appreciators expecting? Are you retarded? If you did not know any better and had none of this information, then I suppose you can be excused, but then again, you can't go on fucking Google without seeing mid-reviews, bad reviews, and a metric fuck ton of discussion on how the game is a fucking insult to your dopamine receptors. You also cannot talk about any Bethesda game of this fucking century without mentioning abysmal stability, bugs, glitches, and crashes. You also can't use the excuse of mindless fun being your primary motivator. This isn't Buzz Monster Mania. This is the company that makes EA look moral and Ubisoft sound competent, for fuck's sake. But it's fine that your game bought from a company that had to be forced by governments to provide refunds doesn't work. It's fine that it crashes. It's fine that Pete the Fink Hines is glazing the state of affairs. All of this is fine because the people pointing out the obvious were arbitrarily designated by people with tree logs up their asses that, the people doing so are just purists and New Vegas elitists or some stupid shit. Just keep being influenced, bro. Just keep fucking dumping your money into this crap because according to those Redditors, we're just haters. Then that separates us from you because we allegedly don't know how to have fun. Thank you so very much to every thunderous imbecile saying Bethesda has fixed Starfield on PS5 when the issues of incessant crashing still persist, though admittedly at a somewhat reduced rate, and I couldn't even fucking believe this when I saw it, but apparently it also happens on Xbox, on fucking Xbox. It's a fucking Xbox game. Okay, I'll stop now. I think you understand what the consequences of letting games and the game industry be influenced by influencers, and the subsequent lack of people thinking for themselves is. I think we all know what the consequences of all of this are by now. We are getting games that are built not based on the passions of people, but on what influencers might like, and what can be used to manipulate audiences into not thinking for themselves and creating a cult around the worst products imaginable. It's a filthy cycle, really. And believe me when I say I am very fatigued of using Bethesda games as an example, but they really are the best possible example. Because the community surrounding it isn't so much a community in the usual sense, but rather a collection of people that just keeps repeating the same shit over and over and over again. The cycle always continues. Make a game that these so-called influencers can gobble up and that can be used to manipulate people's expectations. Use those trusted influencers to spread a positive image of your game and of your company and shit like that. Sap it of all creativity for the sake of screenshots and cinematic edits. Release it, have people be disappointed, and then just wait a little bit and the influencers will gobble it back up by downplaying all of the problems, and so the cycle begins anew. It's been more than 10 fucking years ever since I noticed this pattern beginning. More than 10 years of people saying, oh no, that was the last time I was tricked. And then within 5 5 minutes, they're right back to being hyped and buying shit again, and falling for the same old trick. I was originally going to name and shame like half a dozen people, but now I've decided to only do 2. I'm doing this because despite the fact that definitionally speaking I am a little bit of an influencer myself, I want to categorically refuse that label and allow you to think for yourselves rather than spoon-feeding you and treating you like cattle. I am a YouTuber, this is a hobby, and I'm not the fucking slave of Moloch or some shit. What a nice segue into talking about Juicehead. And now Juicehead is not the biggest offender in all of this, but he is one that drives me absolutely up a fucking wall. Let me explain. Juicehead makes videos that are a blend of informative and commentary on things like games, update to games, and gaming news. If you've been paying attention throughout this video, you can look at your screen right now and already see the pattern that we talked about. Even in videos where Juicehead correctly identifies a lot of the problems that people have with, for example, Bethesda games, and Bethesda's behavior, such as selling a bunch of unfinished community mods and labeling it as DLC, all it takes is for a whole 5 fucking minutes to pass for him to switch up completely and go back to producing generic hype slop content. Not only this, but he has a bit of a track record of downplaying problems, such as negative trends in Bethesda's behavior, and if you're wondering why, it's because of the easy paycheck that he gets because these videos get hundreds of thousands of views, and also totally not to keep the special privileges he has. In case you aren't aware of what I'm talking about, he got invited to see Fallout Season 2 early. Despite the fact that he occasionally is more critical of Bethesda, he still gets this special treatment, effectively guaranteeing that if he wants to keep these, he will never fucking point to the obvious or say what needs to be said. Meaning that if you're a viewer of Juicehead, you will always be secondary to the payout that he so desperately seeks. Consumer advocacy and morals be damned, am I right? Listen to what he says.
Game release be crashing, because this exact same pattern has been repeated by Bethesda a few times now, and it's
a few times now? A few times now? This pattern has repeated itself a few times now. We have to deal with our hobbies, our games, our passions, our franchises being fucking ruined because of YouTubers like this, who let things get to an unacceptable level. Starfield on PS5 crashing every 2 minutes, every 2 fucking minutes, and the people who turned this situation into what it is, the best these people can do is say, well, this pattern's been repeated a few times, and it's okay, like, you'll have to wait 2 months to play the game you bought. And we get shit-talked, we have to deal with this crap, we have to deal with all this, and these people, what's the best thing they can do? Oh, well, yeah, it's crashing every 2 minutes, but you'll have to wait, like, 2.5 months to play the game you bought. And, yeah, it's a pattern that's repeated itself a few times. Like, no, you fucking wastelander. This is a pattern that has repeated itself for 20 motherfucking years. 20 motherfucking years. Bethesda reselling other people's unfinished work. And the best thing these people can do, oh no, it's a pattern. A few times now. It's just a pattern that's been repeated a few times now. No, I refuse to accept this. Fuck you, Juicehead. And then we have Many a True Nerd, and now Many a True Nerd really is Many a True Wastelander, because while Juicehead primarily targets the financial and the hype aspect of being an influencer, Many a True Nerd is the complete inverse of that while still being a quote-unquote influencer. If you need a name for both of these, Juicehead is a hype influencer and Many a True Nerd is the discourse influencer. Let me explain. What Many a True Nerd does is that he tries to emotionally validate everyone in order to gather people around him, and in the process, convincing people who may not know any better of the shit he spews, and then using that to push for whatever the hell he wants. If you don't understand what I mean, then let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard about the junk economy? The junk economy is unironically a term that Many a True Nerd tried to use in order to convince people that Fallout 4 is actually better than you think. In his video, Many a True Nerd attempted to articulate the emotion that people wanted to have validated of Fallout 4 actually being a good game, but because making a video simply saying it's okay if you had fun with it wouldn't get him views, he lied through his teeth and made shit up about the game to try to validate the emotion while also seeming reasonable and reliable. Let me clarify something. Fallout 4 is definitionally a bad role-playing game, but that does not mean you're wrong for having fun with it. What is wrong is making things up and trying to get people to parrot you by being a disingenuous prick.
And thus we come to Fallout 4. The junk economy is a very elegant answer to this problem. How do you make every single building in the game worth exploring? By giving every single bit of set dressing potential value.
He failed in this example because simply saying a junk economy sounds so ridiculous that nobody will actually side with him on this, but it won't stop others from trying to defend the associated mechanics. However, he hasn't failed in other instances, such as when he tried to defend Fallout 3 by downplaying Fallout New Vegas. In his video, titled Fallout 3 is Better Than You Think, he tried to say that Colonel Autumn, the alleged villain of Fallout 3, who's actually just a walking plot device for Emil Pagliarulo's bad writing, is actually good by comparing it to Linnaeus from Fallout New Vegas. Well, good in quotes. He wants to make Fallout 3 seem better than what it actually is. That's the point of the video. And to achieve this, he claims that Linnaeus, the main bad guy in the Legion, is just some guy, end quote, in a mask with vague contradictory stories of him being mean surrounding him.
He just sort of turns up halfway through. He's just a guy standing there saying, well, I guess it's time for us to fight now, and in the space of 3 lines of dialogue, you can talk him down, and he just walks out. I mean, I don't even know what to say to that. Actually, wait, I do. At least Autumn actually showed up earlier in the game. At least we've seen him before. At least he's actually done something against me and against my family. At least some effort was made to show, not tell. Linnaeus is literally some guy who we've never met before the final confrontation. All we know is some vague stories about how mean he is, but Ulysses even specifically mentions it might not be the same guy under the mask, and Lucius's backstory for him doesn't match up with the one Caesar gives, and his face under the mask doesn't match up with Caesar's story either. So basically Linnaeus is just some guy who may or may not have done some bad stuff in the past, but some of it was probably someone else who was just wearing the same hat.
Now, anyone that's played Fallout New Vegas knows that this framing of Linnaeus is bullshit, and I'll leave it to you to explain why if you want, but if you're someone seeking validation of Fallout 3 actually being really good, we'll completely disregard that, be influenced, if you will, and then just parrot what he says verbatim. This shit poisons discourse, screws over the hobby, shows that people are easily malleable, and complicates future discussions, such as examples of Fallout 4 not being a good game, and that example not being something that Bethesda should continue to follow. How the fuck, I ask you, how the fuck do you think we got to the point where obvious problems just keep getting disregarded and Bethesda's content seems to be consistently getting worse? Why do you think that so many people just get fucking slandered as being purists and elitists, while obvious problems with Bethesda's games just go fucking unaddressed? Because the so-called New Vegas purists and elitists are just getting slandered, and they have to spend their time addressing that slander, which makes people who are conditioned to not be thinking not get the obvious point that we're trying to get across. Many a true nerd knows that this is what he's doing. Many a true nerd has videos lying through his teeth, making things up about the games that he's defending that flat out aren't true. But if you dare to try to address any of these in context while actually being good faith, you will have your video slandered as being an hours-long hate marathon, as happened with Kritosis, who a lot of people are still convinced was just rabidly hating on Many a True Nerd, despite the fact that Kritosis' video is an analytical, good faith, objective deconstruction of Many a True Nerd's arguments and points. Similar things have also happened to me when I tried to criticize Starfield, Fallout Show Season 1, and even Riley CS, believe it or not. Now, just to make sure that everyone is on board and understands, let's talk about the point of it all. I want to make something very clear here. I've touched on this previously, and it might sound like I'm repeating myself, but I want to ensure that it's clearly understood. Tim Cain is right and wrong at the same time. His video contains multiple incorrect framings of how things progressed over time. He continuously misrepresents the role that games journalists played and how they're no different from the influencers that he's complaining about, but I do not think he did this intentionally. Rather, it's all just from the perspective of a man that has a very specific context shaping his views and opinions. Tim Cain is correct when he says that influencers shape game design. It's obvious that many games are just copying each other based on trends that worked in gaining attention. Why do you think that every game suddenly had to have 20, 30, 40, 50 hours of content? Why do you think that they have to have endless side missions, hyper-realistic grass fields, and proto-RPG elements even if the game doesn't call for it? Well, that's because back in the day, it was popular to complain about along with complaining about lack of depth or underwhelming visuals. Meetings undoubtedly took place in his presence involving discussions on game length and game visuals. He himself probably received directions from some fucking higher-ups telling him to make something more cinematic that shows off the good visuals in an impressive edit. However, much like most of the framing in this video, his point lacks nuance and critical details along with a consideration of how so-called influencers well, influence game design and, by proxy, the game industry in general. As I said before, this being a point by Patrician TV, what influencers do is articulate a feeling that people have. There was frustration of many games being too short or quote-unquote next-gen games and not being detailed enough. The way games have changed isn't necessarily the fault of influencers. All influencers did, in this context, is allow people to rally under common complaints, preferences, and so on. But then again, Tim Cain touched on something that not many people realize. Many people do not think for themselves.
But the negative to this is more and more people seem to be abdicating their own judgment to that of people they see online. It's like, I don't want to think about it. You tell me what I should think about it. And I see that sometimes on this channel when I get multiple nearly identical comments from people, and I realize they're just quoting an online influencer. Sometimes it's a meme, but more often it's, oh, this influencer person said this thing about this, and now they're just quoting without any attribution.
It's not a new thing, I don't think. It has been common for an influential person or group of people to, well, influence people to the point where they don't think.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish things simply aren't true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platform.
If an influencer says one thing, as stupid as it may be, so long as it touches on a feeling they have, that being a preference, complaint, whatever, it allows them to wield significant sway over what the viewer in this example thinks. Look back again at Fallout 3. It is an objectively bad role-playing game with a bad story and barely passable gameplay. However, critical elements of it allowed people, myself included, fun fact, to have a good time when playing it. As such, people want, as is natural, to have the emotions they felt while playing it validated. This is just basic psychology. So, when and I use this term loosely, trusted YouTubers such as many a true wastelander makes up garbage and lies through his teeth to make Fallout 3 look good, people who seek this validation are swayed by it. And of course, cease to think about the monumental stupidity that they're hearing. They then repeat the argument they think is articulate verbatim and begin an echo chamber. And of course, other influencers who really just want your fucking money and attention see this parroted sentiment and simply regurgitate it as well. Why? Because that's where the views are, and in many cases, they're not thinking for themselves either. They may legitimately just be that dumb. And then game companies, devs, shareholders, whatever the fuck, then all see this and begin to act on the basis that providing a product in line with these quote-unquote common sentiments is where the money is at. If turning a serious story-based franchise into a millennial comedy theme park is what gets them the big numbers, the big payout, then that's what they'll do. If people defend downplaying the story in a story game in favor of gunplay and rule of cool mentality, then that's what you'll get. So if people talk more about the gunplay rather than the story, it'll be interpreted as that being what is most important. But that's not to say the game companies are innocent, influenced people, by the way. Many, such as Bethesda, sure as fuck are not. What I'm getting at is that the impact of people not thinking for themselves and so-called influencers not doing their due diligence or being a bunch of shilling fucks is exactly this. Not that I had to say any of this, you guys actually think for yourselves? Yeah, good goy. But it really helps to put into perspective the sort of shit we have to deal with in our fan base, in our fandom. It all becomes very simple when you realize that the people calling us all the terrible names, calling us all the worst things, slandering us, doxing us, and then acting like the innocent little fucks they are, or at least think they are, it really puts it all into perspective when you realize they're just people seeking emotional validation. If you had fun with Fallout 4, Fallout 76, or whatever the fuck, fine. If you had fun with Starfield, fine. But be fucking honest and do not get swayed by people who just want your attention and your wallet. That is how you get cases of Fallout 4's DLC, such as Nuka World. That's how you get Fallout 76. That's how you get Starfield. That's how you get the... People need to think for themselves, and until they start thinking for themselves instead of being spoon-fed the acceptable opinion that validates their emotions from fucking shilling degenerates behind a microphone, none of the problems in this industry are going to be solved, I fucking assure you. And if you think otherwise, do me a favor and load up your 2023 game that you pre-ordered in 2026 for your PS5 and tell me how that's going for you. Leave a juice box emoji in the comments if you agree and made it this far into the video. Thanks for watching, and with a very special thanks to... 1-800-TakingSomeLs, Alcohest, Anononono, Autumn Harvester, A Real Lobster with an Internet Connection, BenDynamic, Cameron Mitchell, Deanod, Deniz, Devon, dotEXCEL, Duelity, Divine, Putrid, Etymology, FML, Fizzy, Garrett Mills, GuestDude, Garmer89, Hunter NightShadow, Johnny Yuma, Kriegsman Jaeger, LocalBirdBrain, LostTheorem, Louise Worthing, LousyAppleKing, Monsoon, Ori Moreau, Purple Chowder, Raul Olivetti, Spoofers, Supergeil, and Zold for being the highest tier channel members. Join as a channel member to get early access to all videos, access to exclusive videos, and if you join as a Major General, a shout out at the end. Thanks once again, and I'll see you all in the next one. See you soon.